It's been said the whole world is a stage and everybody plays a part. But the question remains, who's writing the script? Welcome to Around the Fire.
Hey, good to see you. Come on in and join us here at Around the Fire. Today, me and my guests, Sandy Pope, Lorna Myrie, Tammy Purnell, and Krista Hayes, are going to talk about something very essential to the male gender. So, before we begin, I'd like you to look at this clip.
For me, when I had an image of who I wanted to be, I created my own image. I just said, how do I want to project myself to the world? What do I want people to see me like? How do I want to walk? How do I want to talk? And I literally, about 12 years old, just created this self-image of who God was going to be to the world. And then at some point, I had to kind of realize that it was a little boy that created that image. And, so I had to honor that little boy and say, you know what, I thank you for that. Thank you for creating that. I appreciate that. But there's much more to it than that even.
I think Guy Hobson, one of the brothers who was on the panel for A Letter to My Father, was talking about manhood. And that is what we're going to talk about. And I think it was very interesting when he said he created an image of what a man would be at age 12. And then later on in life, he revisited it to, figure out whether it was still relevant or not. So, manhood, what is it really? Let's talk. Ladies, when you think man, what comes to mind? Anyone?
A leader.
Okay.
Someone that's a leader of the family, professional business person, mostly a leader.
Okay.
In the African American community, because I think man in other ethnicities have different meanings. So initially, when I hear a man, I'm thinking somebody who's leader of the family, who will elevate the family. It's a family thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
A protector.
Protector.
Yeah, someone that I know is going to protect me, protect our family, protect our home. Just make sure that everything is going to be okay for us.
Okay. Good.
And seeing for me, that is a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have my reality and then I have my truth.
Okay.
So my truth is going to be the protector, the shield, the guardian, the personal keeper. And then my reality is of what we see in culture, which is a broken down version.
Right.
So for me, it's a two-part question of whether or not we're talking about reality or whether or not we're talking about truth.
Okay. Let's talk reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say that I think for me, what comes to mind is a friend and a partner. Because I think that without that friendship and partnership, there's no opportunity to negotiate some of this brokenness. Because the brokenness isn't only in men, it's within us also. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that without the foundation of partnership and friendship, it's very, very difficult to navigate some of the challenges that men face in terms of fulfilling their role and meeting that the real in terms of what we would expect a man to be.
I think a partnership is a key word, because I think if we thought of ourselves with our partners, then I don't think they would be too intimidated when we want to go into business or expand or excel. So I think partnership is good, but I don't think that our men believe in our partnership, because I think that they believe that they are who they are, and we are the second person in this unit. And to me, that's not a partnership. That's like he's over here and I'm over here. And I think that's where the friction comes in. So when you talk about man and manhood, I think they have to get a better understanding of what partnership is. Because when we get married, I don't hear anybody talking about partnership. It's go get the apron and cook and clean. And I'm going to go out and support the family and work hard and bring home the money. So it separates the family, it separates the partnership. So then when you mature, when the family, when those two people mature and the woman decides, hey, I got talent too, and hey, I could run my own company, and hey, I could be the president CEO of somebody else's company, then the partnership doesn't come into play. It becomes a friction instead of a partnership.
So you're saying that the roles that we have adopted or adapted to, as far as what represents a man, are a bit distorted or really not valid because of what is produced from those roles, from the ideas that we manifest as men?
Well, I think we have to look back. We have to go back to the roots, where this all comes from.
Right.
And if we look back in our African culture, there was the man went out and slaughtered the animals and brought the food back, and the family was happy with that because of that environment. But today, bringing us back from slavery is sort of like a group of people, men and women, that were dropped on the side of the road and had to fend for themselves. And now, bringing it up to date, we have a problem with the partnership, with the family. It's still a broken down product.
Okay, and then that also reflects in the behavior of the man as well, because of the breakdown of the family and all the ideas that go with that.
I feel like men, especially African American men, they feel emasculated. They don't feel appreciated or feel like they are that leader. Because yes, we as Black women have to be very strong, and the roles have reversed where we almost want to be the man, and we're not letting the man be the man. So then there comes that breakdown, because now they're fighting. It's like a battle, trying to be that man. I'm the man. Let me be the man. And a lot of times we as women are not allowing them to be that.
But at the same time, some of them have rescinded that title.
True.
So some of them have given up the title of being the man and being in control. And then something sparks or triggers them, and then they want to step back into it, but you've already given it up, and we've already picked it up and have continued with it, because at some point in time, this position, the responsibilities do need to be taken on and need to be carried out. So with that, I think that to not rescind the title and then want to come back and pick it up later is an issue. So for that to be taken care of, to where that you don't feel like you have to be emasculated, because we are not living in the times where everything was the woman stayed at home and the man went out and worked. So things have changed since then. And so for you to feel like that, because we also want to contribute and may have the ability to contribute more than you do at this particular point in time, either because of culture or society or situations and circumstances, it does not relieve you of your responsibilities, and it should not shift or change your identity as a part of that as well.
But I think that's where communication comes in. That's where you have to sit down and you have to communicate.
But I also want to bring out a point about the breakdown of the family. At some point in time, the woman, the unit was broken because the man, this welfare thing came about. This welfare thing said, okay, you can't have a guy that's living with you, that's producing and working and making a salary. And I think that was another way where our men have been reduced to not being who they would like to be, and they couldn't be because the the environment and the culture put them in a position where they could not come back and support the family. They could not elevate themselves to a point where they could say, okay, I'm taking my woman off of this welfare system, and we're going to create our own family and be strong as a unit. And I think that was a major part with breaking down the manhood and family and the unit and the other young people coming up today. I think that was a major factor for our men.
I agree. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that again, the clip that you made reference to at the opening of the show, when Guy said that, you know, at 12 he sort of invented what it was that he thought a man should be, and that's indicative of many young men where there's an absence of a father in the home, and so, you know, we learn through our environment, the culture, the environment that we're in an absence of men, then we're having to make up, we're having to invent. Men are having to invent what it is. And a lot of what they learn is predicated on stereotypes. And so I think this is also feeding into the machismo that you see in men. And so, as you have said, Tammy, I think as women, because we had to bridge the gap with the absence of the men in the home and become the men in a sense, but we didn't have to just become men in the home. You know, I've worked in the corporate environment and very much, it's very subtle, but as women, we're required to take on a masculine resolve in the workplace. And so it's very difficult, I think, for us as women to surrender that position of authority when we go home, when we're required to be the authoritarian and take charge and be the controller and be the one who fixes things in the work environment. You know, so I think a lot of it carries into the home. And so I think there are many dynamics that are taking place within the relationship between men and women, why there's a disconnect and a lack of communication. But also, too, I think we have to take charge as the women and start to find ways within the home to allow those men to be the, you know, go out and be the provider. And what we do, you know, I have a friend who was getting into trouble in her marriage, and, you know, when they went to counseling, the thing that her husband presented as being the issue is she didn't need him. When he says, let me carry that for you, no, I've got it. When he said, oh, let me help you with that, no, I can do it. And so over the years, you know, it began to, you know, take away his sense of manhood. So even if it's to say, you know, oh, can you reach for that for me? You know,
they want to feel needed.
People need to feel needed. Men need to feel needed in that way. And so I think that we can begin to, as women, if we, with sensitivity, to empower men, and so whether they're not on the same economic plinth of us, it's not really as relevant if we're acknowledging them and showing that we have a need.
It's interesting because I just had that conversation with my boyfriend because, and it's so funny because he said he got very annoyed with me because I am. You know, I was a single mom for a very long time. I did get married. It didn't work. So I was mom. I'm grandma. I'm the one doing. So I'm oftentimes used to carrying bags. I'm used to doing things on my own. So when he's this big, huge guy, so he'll put all the bags on his arms. I'm like, babe, I got something. He'll say, Tammy, just go. And I got it. I'm like, no, I can help. And he's like, no, I got it. Just go ahead in the house. And I'm like, no, I can carry it. Or even he said, if I'm opening the door for you and you start saying, no, I can go. You don't need you to open the door. I can do it. He said, as a man, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop.
Yes. And see, and for me, it showed up in a different form in my relationship, because with me and my fiance, he was very adamant about me not touching any doors. And for when we went grocery shopping, I went in the house, he got the bags out of the car.
Okay.
But where we had the issue is when it came to problem solving.
Okay.
So I was the one who could come up with a problem, go ahead and lay out the plan, and all right, let's go ahead and start doing that.
Okay.
And that's where he felt threatened because
You weren't involving him.
I let him be in control of the house and little things that needed to be done. Yes, he opened the pickle jar, and yes, he took out the trash and all of that stuff. But when it came to real life problems that needed to be communicated and stuff needed to be handled, I stepped up.
You automatically
and
took that.
made him take a back seat to that. So ours was different.
Yeah, it was different.
You know, I think we have to perhaps press the refresh button. The refresh button says, in my psyche, is that instead of the relationship, it should be a partnership. When you're in business with a person, you give and take. It doesn't man, woman, man. You give and take, and everybody may have a certain position, and they may change that position. And there's no friction in that partnership. And when you have a partner, you are able to communicate whatever it is. So when you talk about the pickle jar, maybe I want to open the pickle jar. Or maybe you give it to him to open the pickle jar. That there's no problem with it's a partnership, and everybody just works in this environment to make it work. But I think we focus on relationship, and then we expect certain things from each other, and when we don't meet those expectations, there's a problem.
Yes.
But in a partnership, you got to sit down at the table. You have to say, this ABC is the way it can be or cannot be, and then you come to a solution and you resolve that, and you move on. But we get stuck in the relationship because we want certain things. We want our men, some of us want our men to go out and be leaders, but I think there was a problem when the corporate structure selected African American women as leaders in that environment, and then left the black men out of competing for those because they couldn't compete. Well, if they could, they weren't selected. But I think if we become partners, then it doesn't really matter who's leading the band, who's in the forefront of the march, because at the end product, we got to look at what is the end product for who we are and where we're going as a family. What's the end product? I mean, we can be fighting until the end of time, but we're not succeeding. We're not succeeding economically. We're not succeeding as a family structure, and we're sort of, I get disturbed to see our young men walking around with their pants hanging below their behind. So I said, where did that come from? Where did that come from? People say it came from jail. It came from jail.
It's not even young men anymore. It's old men walking around like that.
That's my point I'm thinking. So I think we got all twisted with leaving out the partnership where we can sit down and talk about, hey, what is this? Let's do this. And you can take the groceries sometime. I'll take it. I'm a strong person. I mean, the single women are strong. They do stuff. I mean, they get the hammer and the chisel and they get stuff, and men walks in, the job's done. So if they get intimidated by that, that's a problem. They shouldn't get it. They should be complimentary that women are able to do some of the things that men can do. It's really, I think it's just that simple.
Okay. You all have answered several questions.
I told you.
I know, and I was warned. They will talk. So, ladies, let's talk about the formation of manhood. What do you think goes into, if you were to create a list of things that have to be done in order for the boy to grow into a man, what would that encompass? What do you see?
I think because as little boys, they're taught to not show feelings.
Okay.
Not to express feelings. Don't be a little punk. Don't do this. Don't.
Yeah.
They need to understand that that's okay.
That they're emotional
That
beings
they can,
as well.
yeah, it's
Yes.
okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to express your feeling.
Yes.
And that's not being a punk.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that definitely needs to be put in the recipe.
Yes. There's a song, and one of the lines is, don't take a boy and bury his feelings, because buried feelings will not make a man. So we have to honor our feelings as men and not think that it's something weak that makes us less manly or masculine, because
And that's
we're
taught at an early age that that's weakness.
Yeah, well, there's been, I remember Joe Williams' song, A Man Ain't Supposed to Cry, so the message in that was to suppress Yeah. So what else would go into the process of becoming a man? What else would you say is important?
I think it's absolutely vital that young boys have male role models in their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, whether if as a single parent, you know, if you have to look to an uncle, a cousin, you know, a male friend, but it's really quite imperative that I think young boys have a male model, you know, who's present in their life, who can really, you see, because what we can articulate is one thing, but the man embodies manhood, and they can model that. You know, how to walk, how to talk, you know, how to be amongst men. You know, a mother can't teach her son how to be amongst men, and how to be amongst men without having to be in a clique or a gang with this machismo and the need to be, you know, demonstrating that through violence and aggression within the community. And I think some of that could be obfuscated if young men actually had models, somebody who they could trust, feel safe. And I think safety and security is something that we've spoken about earlier, is really very important for young men. You know, so how do you model, how do you become a man without becoming violent and aggressive, modeling that without repressing your emotions, and feel safe. You know, feel safe, feel strong and independent. And you can see that modeled in other men, in the family, in the environment, you know, then I think that is invaluable to young boys.
Positive role models.
Positive role models.
All right, and talking about, I'm sorry, Sandy.
I think that's where the gangs come about, because they feel safe in there. They have a leader in there.
It's a family.
Safe. Yes, one of the key.
They feel protected.
They feel,
So they.
That becomes
And that's-
family for the young
that's
man,
family.
because and that becomes the model. So talking about models, who do you think would be a good model of manhood in our society in our current time? Who would you say is a good role model that young men could look up to and maybe?
I mean, the one that's the dead ringer is always Barack Obama.
Of course. That's always the first that comes to mind.
Okay.
Always.
Obvious choice number one.
Yes.
And so, just for the simple fact that against all the odds that he may have had, whether people felt like they were valid or not, they were valid for him. And with that, he still achieved the position of the highest in the land.
Okay.
So for that, it definitely shows that regardless of who you are, you can still go after what you want in life and be able to, you know, if you can't, you know, shoot for the stars, you still land them on the moon.
All right.
So with that, he's definitely choice number one.
Okay.
And he showed love. He showed love of his wife, love of his daughters, support of them, and allowing them to shine.
Okay.
And he was still strong. You know, he was vulnerable at times, and that vulnerability is something that you don't see.
It takes courage.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it takes courage.
And I think for in terms of young men today, I look at some of the young artists who are coming up, and there's two that come to mind. One is J. Cole, and one is Kendrick Lamar. Because, you know, a lot of young people are very immersed into the hip-hop, rap culture, and it really is the defining culture now globally. And I think that they set an example for young people, because, you know, Kendrick Lamar just won a Pulitzer Prize.
Kendrick, I definitely.
And you know, and I think that he's a perfect demonstration of the fact that you can be involved in a culture that expresses a lot of generally expresses a lot of misogyny, a lot of violence, a lot of aggression, and he is successful without feeding into that type of negative message. And I think that that's really important for, young adolescent males to actually see that,
Yes.
and see that you can be successful without necessarily embracing that violence and aggression and misogyny. So I think as a young person, he's a wonderful role model for young males.
So he's very grounded in himself.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's extremely...
He's not easily, dust in the wind.
No.
No, because these are the people, that young people are looking to. It's the musicians and the movie stars now who are the progenitors of culture.
Yes.
They determine culture.
Yes.
And this is what's really shaping the minds of today's young people.
Yes, and I want to piggyback off that statement, because what role does media play in the development of a man?
Well, I was just about to say that the Bill Cosby Show was an excellent medium to see family structure and those individual young boys at one time growing up with problems and being problem solvers. But the problem I have with media, if we're not in control of media, then they can reset anything the way they want. Because as respectful as I thought, looking at the Cosby Show, they turned it all the way around. That it's something that is demeaning, and now all of those components of that show are now don't have an important role in helping our young people become developed. Because in his show, it was not all about Bill Cosby. It's about those young people that were on there that played a very important part in the growing process of young people. But they took that, and I feel that when I say they, I'm talking about when we are not in control of our own medium and our own media. And when you have successful parts that can help us as a people grow, those mediums get turned around. They get all meshed up and mushed up. So now our young people are not looking at shows like The Cosby Show. They're following the musical industry. Intangible. They're intangible products. The millions of people looking, they're intangible, but the Bill Cosby Show was tangible because they were young people right there doing real things every day. So the point I'm making here is that when the mediums turn those products around to be negative, then the groups that were looking, or the young people that were involved, people begin to look other places, like the rap and the violent rap and all the other stuff.
Yes.
But the only simple point I was trying to project is that the Cosby Show was a tangible. It was a tangible product, where now young people are looking at millions of people, and doing millions of things, and we lose them because the Facebook now is capturing them in this whole medium. And whether that's positive or negative, it's not, to me, it's not bringing the family again back together to produce.
So you would say the media has a great amount of influence in what develops as a man, because their ideas are permeated in our environment, and it's what we,
even through reality TV. We talk about the young women, young men as well, because what they see on reality TV is not positive.
Okay. Would you say that those ideas are valid, the images that are being pushed, are they realistic? Are they valid? Are they something that you would want if you had your son to emulate?
So I believe that they are valid, but my problem is that it's not the only viewpoint.
Right.
And when you only show one viewpoint, you alienate the other 10 that are out there.
Okay.
So yes, that is a valid viewpoint, and there are people who act like that, and there are people who emulate that, and there are people who say that reality TV, those are my people. I have found my tribe.
Right.
But at the same time, you are alienating the other 10 viewpoints that are out there, and you're not showcasing them, so those other ones who see reality TV and be like, well, these kind of aren't my people, this isn't my tribe, but I guess I have to make it my tribe since I don't see my tribe that is being shown.
Right.
Wow. So it's just, I guess, by default that they adopt these images, these behavior patterns.
Right.
And that becomes their identity, not even realizing that it's not their authenticity.
well, at a certain age, our young people are looking. They're like sponges.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
They want to be a part of and learn and
Yes.
be electric and part of stuff. They're
Yes.
sponges. So whatever we produce for them, they suck it up. Whether then it may come positive or negative. And as you pointed out, there might be one great thing and then the other 9 are alienated, but they sponge up the one that they think that they
one
can
that's
fit
being
into
put out
that
there,
works good
yes.
for them.
Yes.
And again, it comes back to, I think, family structure.
Yes.
Because, as you say, we're not in that era where the man can go out and work and I stay at home and look after the children. Both salaries are required now.
Yes.
The economics demand that you need 2 incomes. And so you have 2 parents who are out of the home. And so we are resorting to external support
Right.
systems like television, like
Facebook.
devices, like Facebook, to engage the children and to relieve us of the stress so that we can then come home from work and then fulfill getting the meal done, doing the laundry and all the mundane things that have to do to support that family. But there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect, and so the children more and more are being influenced not by the parents in the home, but by outside influences.
The media
And these are
influences.
definitely informing
Yes.
how they're interacting with each other.
Yes.
Siblings now often don't even communicate with each other. One's in their bedroom on one device, somebody's elsewhere on another device. And so, I've heard parents complaining that the 10-year-old doesn't relate to the 7-year-old because they're they're in a bubble.
Yes.
Right.
They're in their own bubble.
Yes.
So
We have to bring them together.
and we, as parents, I think we have a responsibility to really go back to basics, as was said, get back to basics. And that's real connections, real communication, real relationships, and pull them out of that virtual world.
So what we're saying right now is a lot of our environment and our history, the information that we take on, is what our challenge is in becoming men.
Yes.
Okay, and when, like you're saying, the family structure breakdown, which I believe even is an evolution of the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Because that's where we were first emasculated, broken down, whipped, bucked, and all the rest. And then that continued as part of the legacy. I forgot to ask you to say a little something about yourself. We have Miss Sandy Pope.
Hi.
Sandy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let me see. I'm the president and the CEO of my company, Sister for Clean Water. And Sister is CISTA, and it's commit to good health and wellness, invest in yourself, share with others, team up, and activate a plan. And our global mission is Sister Girls leading the way to save our planet. So we do environmental projects and programs to educate the community on how to have a better relationship with the environment.
Wonderful, thank you. Miss Lorna Myrie.
Hello, my name's Lorna Myrie, and I am a social worker. I've had a career also as a corporate administrator, and presently I'm actually a carer for my father. And in adjunct to that, I'm also working with a charitable organization that's mentoring young girls in high school. So that I find very rewarding at this time. And thank you for inviting me back.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. Wonderful, wonderful. And Miss Tammy Purnell, how are you?
Hi, I am Tammy Purnell. I am a wedding coordinator, wedding officiant, something I absolutely love. I am also a mother and grandmother. And,
I'm
and
telling
I
you, fellas.
am, they say black don't crack, right? Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Again, as part 2.
Yes. And Miss Krista Hayes.
Hello, my name is Krista Hayes. I'm a consultant living here in New York City, originally from the South. So just started in the writing arena and actually just published my 7-year-old's first children's book this past spring. So
Great.
very excited about that.
Is it on the market?
It is. It's on Amazon. It's
Name?
called Gabby Explains the Rain by Gabrielle Nelson.
Nice.
Well, Gabby
So,
Explains the Rain.
Yes, starring a little black girl. And so we plan on turning it into a children's series.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice.
We'll look for that.
Great.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, ladies, let's jump in the fire. What part does the female play in bringing about the realization of a man?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that as mothers, particularly in an environment where the father may not be present in the home, I think it's really, really important, one, to not project any anger, bitterness, resentment that you may hold towards the father onto the boy child, because I think that that's a common pattern that tends to happen. And so a lot of anger and gets projected onto young males. And it's not necessarily a direct projection, but just this idea, men are no good, men are bad, and that message, I think can have a very negative impact on the minds of young boys. And I've seen it, and I think also too, we have to be very careful as mothers, both with our boy children and even with our girls, because one thing that I experienced when my parents were separated when I was quite young, and as I was growing up in my teenage years, and my parents were reunited later, but my mother never ever badmouthed my father. I didn't know the story. Yeah, she didn't engage me in that story, and so because of that, she preserved for me, that bond. It wasn't ruptured, it wasn't broken. It was for me to make my own assessment, and I think that sometimes in our anger and the acrimony that can often surround, the breakup of a relationship, that we can rob and diminish those really important bonds that boy children have with their fathers. So, I think that's really critical for us to be aware of.
Yes. Because the transference of that type of information can have a very emasculating impact on the developing man. Yes. Very important to be cognizant of what it is you're teaching, what it is you're modeling, what it is you're bringing to that. Anything else that you think is important that a female contributes to the development of a man?
I also feel like that the woman is also like the fortifier of a man. And so, and really and truly, a woman can either build him up or break him down. And that is, it's good and it's bad. Because, like earlier, complimented you on your cooking. You sat up straight, you had a smile on your face. And it was just like that extra that may have just needed to be said.
Yes.
And for us to be able to know how to wield that power and to be able to use it in a positive way so that it does build our men up instead of tearing them down. So I think it really can help with not having to fight internal battles at home while you're also trying to fight external battles with the world.
Say that again. That was great. Say that again, please.
So it's like, when we wield our power correctly, so we can really help build the men up to where they're not fighting with us at home, trying to either dominate the home in a way that is unnecessary and learn to be, cooperative and partners and actually create the partnership that is necessary in the home. And so while they're also trying to, especially with Black men, trying to validate your place in society and also who you are as a person when culture and society, especially America's society, is tearing you down.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Any further thoughts?
I definitely agree with what you said. I think as women, we have to encourage our young men, our young black boys, from a young age. Encourage them to be great. Encourage them to be respectful. We teach them those things as women. And yes, they learn to be men from their fathers. They do need that encouragement from them as well. And you know, and in what you said, as far as not speaking ill words about the father, about that parent, children form their own opinions, and young men form their own opinions. You know, I see it even with my own grandson. My daughter didn't speak bad about his father, but his father killed that relationship on his own.
Okay.
By speaking ill to his son, instead of encouraging and instead of trying to teach him to be a positive young man, which he is because of his mother. His mother has taught him to look out for his sister, to look out for his brother, to protect, to love them, to go out and be great in the world, that you can do anything. So, you know, it's about that balance.
Yes.
For a young man, from a little boy, from a baby. You know, everything, they spend so much time with their mothers that a lot of what they learn comes from us.
Exactly. Yes. Sandy, you have any more?
Press the refresh button.
I like that one, Sandy.
Yeah, press the refresh button because it's all about education as well. I think we lack as a culture, and I can't talk of other cultures, we lack that education on what's important in a lifestyle, in a lifetime. Where are you going in your life, you know, where are you going after 12, after 17, after 18, after, you got young men, 50, playing basketball out there. And what are they doing during the day? Playing basketball, because nobody has set a plan for them to say, when you're 50, you should be X, Y, and Z. When you're 40, when you're 30, when you're 20. And that's where the 12-year-old, I think, sat down and said, oh, I think it was on TV where he said, oh, is this the way I want to be? But I think we don't have a plan. With no plan is set in place for our families to say, when you get X, like the Jews, from what I understand, when they're 13, they become, what do you call that? When they become bar mitzvah or the whatever. So that sets a stage for them, for their men. It sets a defined stage. We don't have anything like that. So we need something that sets the stage that says, when you're 13, you better be doing A, B, and C, and not out there playing basketball.
Okay.
So that sets a mental stage about education, about family, about their career, about their relationship, about partnerships with women, how they're going to affiliate with women. And oftentimes when our young men, 13, you know, the rumor is, okay, who are we going to lay today? Who are we going to have sex? You know, their hormones gets all excited.
Right.
So they go off focus, and then they got some young girl who has some aspirations to be a singer and a dancer, is pregnant on welfare. So it's no plan. They got to have a plan set when they, as a child or baby growing up. And young man, when he gets 12, 13, whatever it is, there is some plan for him.
Okay.
There's no plan, I
think.
think.
What I'm picking up from what you're saying is there's a rite of passage that needs to be somewhat implemented in the raising of a man.
Yeah.
That is so true. And I actually know from my home community a pastor who has 3 sons. And he did for all 3 of them, he did a coming of age ceremony for one of their birthdays. And like they have grown up. I think the oldest one now is like a sophomore or a junior in college. and they're all turning out to be fantastic young men
Yes.
that are growing up, doing well in school, straight A's, athletes, and whatnot, because he did set parameters for what they were supposed to be.
Yes.
Plan of action. Yeah.
It's interesting. I saw Ayanna Van Zandt do that with a group of men,
Yes.
grown men. She did a rite of passage
Yeah.
for them. And she had some very influential men there too.
Oh, I did
you
see
see
that.
that? It was
Facilitated, yes.
amazing.
Yes.
I thought it was amazing
Yes.
because they had lost their way. And that rite of passage helped them to get back on the right track.
Right.
Yes.
And to find themselves and where they needed to be going in life.
Yes. Yes. Because it's the inner child that has yet to grow into that role. It still needs that nurturance. And even though you may have the physicality of a man, you may have the emotionality or mentality still of a young boy, because that has never really been touched in a way that would help it to grow.
Yeah.
So I would like to elaborate on the role of the inner child in the presentation of a man. How do you think that should be portrayed, the inner child? Because that's a part of us. And it does influence, our choices and behavior patterns, as well, as our portrayal of a man. How do you think that inner child should play in the presentation of manhood?
Well, I think, I'm sorry,
No,
but
go.
I think that the inner child is really, I call it the wounded child. And I think that as parents, it's really important to create a safe environment where, there's open communication, because communication is really critical. Because I think that lots of times children don't always communicate what they're feeling, and they don't always convey to you what it is that they're experiencing, because sometimes, they feel that they have to protect you. Yeah, and so you've got the young male child trying to be the protector in the home and defending, mom and siblings, and so, then he is shouldering this burden and doesn't always, and sometimes, so I think that, children, young male children need to feel protected and safe in an environment where, whether they can speak to their mom or a male, who is standing in as a surrogate father in that environment, but they need to be able to communicate and express those feelings. I think we talked about feelings in the other segment, but I think that it's about cultivating an environment where young men feel safe to actually connect with those feelings and to be able to talk about those, express those feelings. I was watching The Vice on television very recently, and it was an episode about young adolescent Black and Hispanic males who are going into the prison system age 15 and not going to come out until they're 70. And there was one young man who went in, turned his life around, got his undergraduate degree, got a master's degree, and he started a program in the prison where he's actually walking people through and saying, okay, we need to get to that. What was it? What was that wounding? This is the inner child. What was that wounding that happened to you that took you to the gangs on the streets and made you make those choices? So I think that really, if we can keep young men, in an environment that it's safe to talk about your feelings, and not feel, that they have to shut down, but I think that can go a long way in helping them to process the wounding, because there's always wounding. This is life. There's always wounding.
Right.
It's not intentional, but there's always some harm or hurt or wounding that we experience. So we need to be able to talk about it.
Yes, we need to express, and we need to be able to emote sometimes what it is, what it feels like, so that child can heal that hurt and mature as a man as well. So the inner child is an essential part of a man, but it shouldn't be arrested development. It should grow with the man.
And we as parents have to be open enough to listen.
Understand that, yes.
To listen to them and give them that space and give them that place where they can talk to us, and we are going to listen, and we are going to try to understand, and then try to help heal that.
Yes. Yes. So if a man came to you and he'd say he's 40 or whatever, and he had that wound that he needed to express and heal, you would be open to allowing him to express whatever that pain is.
Definitely.
And allow that process to take place.
Because they need to be able to do that.
Yes, no matter what the package, it's the effect.
They need to be able to do that, because that may be the very thing that it's breaking down. That partnership, or that family, that inner child, that wound that he was never able to express to anyone, or to learn how to heal or deal with it.
Yes.
You know what I also think, again, talking about partnership, I think when you have this partnership and the partnership breaks, it can still be a partnership that can then communicate with the child about, this is not your fault. A lot of times the separation, the kids feel it's their fault. They did something wrong. Then they encase all of that hurt inside. But I think if again we look at the relationship as a partnership, that the partnership never breaks down. So then the partnership then takes this entity and talks to this entity about, it's not your fault. We're still partners, and I'm partnered with you, and he's partnered with you as well. So then he has a choice to talk to one of the partners about something that could be, poisoning the mind or poisoning the system.
Yes.
So it gives them an avenue to discuss, to talk. It's kind of strange. It's kind of tough, I think, for a young man, 12, 13, 14, that decides that he's going to join a gang because he needs a partner. He needs a safe haven. He needs love. And then that continues on to 21 until he's in jail, and that's a whole nother different experience. So then the hurt just mounts, it just keeps mounting. It keeps mounting. And then if he's lucky to get out of the incarceration, then he goes right back in. That whole recidivism, whatever that word is, in and out, in and out, in and out. So I think the hurt begins when there is a separation in the partnership. I always call it a partnership. Because now they don't have a way to share what they feel to anybody, because they don't like the mother because the mother did something to the husband and made the husband leave. They don't like the father because the father's not there to support them in any way. So you need to get that partnership and explain to them, sit them down, boy or girl, but we're talking about boys at this point.
Yes.
5 years old, 6 years old, and let them understand we're still all a family. Even though dad has to go over there and mom has to be over here, we're still a family, we're still a partnership, and we still have to communicate as a family around the table. That's another thing too. We don't sit around the table and eat and talk anymore. Loss of partnership, loss of familyship. Everything is looking at TV, eating all that potato chips that's bad for you. But I think that in a serious mode, I think the young person has to see where everybody's still a partner. We still have a relationship. We still love each other. We don't read the same books, but we still love each other. We can still progress from there. And then when they get 12 or 13, they still have friends. The partnerships are still part of the friendship. The mother or the father is still part of that unit. So I think it gives them a more positive structure than not having anybody. And then when they're 25 or 30, trying to sit down and tell somebody, well, I've been hurt since I was 4 years old because of some physical abuse or mental. It's hard to sit down and talk to somebody about that. It's later in life. That's what I think.
Yeah. But it should still be allowed, even if it is later in life, so that healing can happen. Yeah, there shouldn't be any limit put on that, because we're all carrying something, and a lot of it we're scared to be vulnerable with because we don't know how it's going to be received.
True.
And we are human. We may not mean to hurt a person in our response to what they're sharing, but sometimes it happens, and that can even cause more of a shutdown.
Right.
Yeah. Wow, okay. I'm starting to feel emotional.
We're here. You can talk to us.
I want to cry my life out. Ladies, I want to digress into something which I asked a gentleman, and I called it the billion-dollar question. Can a gay man be considered a man?
Yes.
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 Can I say that
Gay
again?
man be considered a man?
Okay.
Okay.
How are we defining manhood? I mean,
No, but that's what I'm
we gotta-
saying.
yeah, right.
You know,
I mean, he's still a
everybody
man.
might have a different take on
because
that.
I mean, I think that everything, they're hermetic principles. It's like, and one of the laws of the universe is the law of gender. Everything in this universe expresses male and female. Yeah, we as women, we have a masculine side, and the culture and society demands that we shift into that and move more into the linear left brain function, and then we have our feminine side, and men also have a feminine and masculine side. So, I think that to say a man who identifies as being gay is not a man, I personally, would not say he's not a man. He's clearly a man, but then now, then you want to go into deeper explanations. Now you're going into it's very murky waters because it's slippery. I think everyone at the moment is struggling as we're moving into an environment that is very challenging, particularly in the education system, because now teachers are because it's going beyond is a gay man a man. Now we're questioning even gender. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen
Now
that.
we're moving into an era where teachers are being told that they have to educate children that they don't have a gender.
Yes, and a lot of parents are raising their children to not
To not identify
with one or the other.
one gender or
Really?
another.
That's
So I think it's not a question I feel prepared to answer at the moment, because it just opens up a whole Pandora's box. It's really very, very complex, this whole idea of gender identity. And I have to just add quickly that there are many external environmental factors, if we talk about epigenetics, that are actually informing how our children are expressing, because we have things like atrazine, that is a herbicide that's used that actually changes male frogs' genitalia into female genitalia, and it's in our drinking water. Soya products actually also feminize men. And it switches women, girls too. So we have this whole genetic expression that is being mutated and altered that then informs what the child is experiencing. So it's a very complex issue.
Yes.
And
Yes, it is multi-layered.
Multi-layered.
It's very multi-layered, because of those influences are not natural influences.
No, they're not.
Those are attacks.
But they're very real.
Yeah, they're real. They're
in terms of the manifestation and the issues that children are experiencing with their gender identification.
Ladies, one final question before we close. Would you say that manhood is a defined set of characteristics that a boy must grow into, or is it an ongoing process of self-discovery?
I think it's an ongoing process, definitely. Because they're always learning.
Okay.
They're always from outside influences, from in the home, from what they see on television. It's ongoing.
Okay.
Well, I think that, as I had said earlier, that there has to be a right or a pathway to get them to where they have to make some decisions about their life going forward.
Yes.
And I think a lot of our young people have just been like let out of a bubble, and they create their own personality. They create their own way of life. They then decide, I'm going to join a gang, or they're going to kill somebody, or do something violent.
They fall prey
So they
to
don't
the
have
environmental influences that could work against them growing healthy.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry I had to cut you, but we're out of time, and I wish we could continue. But thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate what you've offered, and I know our audience will definitely have many takeaways. Thank you. Sandy Pope, Lorna Myrie, Tammy Purnell,
Thank you.
Krista Hayes.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you. And I thank you for joining us, viewers, and I hope you enjoyed your visit with us. So until next time we meet on Around the Fire, be safe, be well, and be empowered.